Okay, what we're working with today is special right triangles. And so there's two types. There's the 30, 60, 90 and the 45, 45, 90. These are special because these are ones that have instances that show up a lot. And so we have special numbers that kind of help us know how to work with them. Okay, when you have a 30, 60, 90 triangle, the side that is the shortest side has a ratio of 1. The longer side has a ratio of square root of 3, and then the hypotenuse has the square root of 2. And so the ratio is 1, square root of 3, 2. And so this is short, long, and then the height. And so even if a triangle gets bigger or smaller, the ratios of those sides are 1, square root of 3, and 2. For a 45, 45, 90 triangle, if you notice it has two equal angles, so that means it has two equal sides. And so those sides have a measurement of 1. So they are always equal to each other. And then to find the hypotenuse, it's the square root of 2. So the ratios for this one you need to know is 1, 1, square root of 2. So it's leg, leg, hypotenuse. And so it may not make sense right now, but once we start doing problems, it will make a lot more sense. Okay, so step for finding missing sides on special right triangles. So the step one you want to do is you want to label the sides. So if it's a 30, 60, 90, you're going to label short, long, height. If it is a 45, 45, 90, you could do leg, leg, height. It's just helpful to do that, okay? The second thing you're going to do is you're going to set up your ratios or your proportion. And then once you do that, you solve. Okay, so let's go ahead and do some examples so you can see what I'm talking about and how it works. Okay, so for number one, this is a 30, 60, 90. Didn't have a box there. So my shortest side is opposite my smallest angle, and it also looks the shortest side. So this is the short. This is my longer leg. And then this is my hypotenuse. If you notice, it's my short leg that has a number. So this is the one that I must use for my ratio. And from there, it doesn't matter what we do. I'm going to go ahead and do my short over long. And remember your numbers, if you write this several times, you'll have them memorized, is 1, square root of 3, 2. So this is the short, the long, and then the height. And so I start with my original ratios right here. And on my original ratios, my short is 1 and my long is square root of 3. Now I go to my new. So this one is original from here. And now I go to my new. And so the new ones, on my picture, my new one is 5. And my new long leg is X. And so now what I need to do is, I can't solve this because the X is on the bottom, so I'm going to flip it. So it's going to be square root of 3 over 1 is equal to X over 5. And now I get rid of a times 5, I divide by multiplying by 5. And so I find that X is equal to 5 square root of 3. Okay? And so that gives me X. Now what I need to do is I need to do the same process for my hypotenuse. So let's change colors. And so now my hypotenuse is going to have to go with short. So I'm going to do short over my height. And again, I start with my original. And my original short leg is 1. My original hypotenuse is 2. And now I go, and that again comes from here, and now I go to my new short leg was 5, and my new hypotenuse was y. And again, it's upside down. I probably could have switched them at the beginning, but I want to try and keep it uniform so you get used to it. So I'm going to flip these upside down. And now to get y by itself, I'm going to multiply by 5. And so my y value is 10. So let's go back and look at our steps. We might add some stuff. Our step 1 was to label the sides. Step 2 to set up a proportion. And so it was original is going to equal the new numbers. Original numbers, new numbers. And then you solve. And then for step 4, repeat to find if needed, if there's another side that's needed. Okay? All right, so what I'd like you to do is I would like you to try and do the first couple steps for number 2. I'd like you to start by labeling your sides and then figuring out what your first ratio is if we're going to solve for x first. We'll start with x. Once you think you have it, press play. So this was my long, this was my height, and this is my short. The one that you had, you should have highlighted or circled that you had your long leg. And now, if you noticed up here, I had to keep flipping them, so to make it so I don't have to flip it, I'm going to do long on the bottom. So I'm going to do short over long, and let's write the numbers. 1 square root of 3, 2, short, long, height. And so, again, you start with your original. And these are my original. And so my original short leg was 1. My original long leg was square root of 3. And now we should have went to our new. My new short leg was x. And my new long leg was 12. So now I solved. To get rid of a divide by 12, I multiply by 12. And so I get x is equal to 12 divided by square root of 3. Now, there's a couple different ways you could do it. One thing you could do is you can actually do the math and find the decimal, which is 6.93. But really what you should be able to do is also rationalize the denominator. And so I can't have a square root of 3 on the bottom, so I multiply by square root of 3 on top and the bottom. And what that does is it gives me the square root of 9 here. Let's highlight that. The square root of 3 times the square root of 3 is the square root of 9. And the square root of 9 is 3, so that's why I'm going to get 3. So I get 12 square root of 3 over 3. And then if you notice, you can reduce this. So it's 4 square root of 3. So it looks like a lot of work, and it is a little tricky. But you can have either answer. You can have x is equal to 6.93. If you're more mathy and you understand it, then you should have 4 square root of 3. Okay? So again, that was to find the short leg. Now I'd have to do the same thing to find the long leg, but I need to add some space real quick. Okay, so now you're going to try the next one. I'll help you set up just in case you need it still. And so I'm going to do my height over long. My original height was 2. My original long is square root of 3. And then my new height was y over my new long, which is 12. Okay, so go ahead and solve that, and you can get an answer as a decimal or as a radical. So you should have multiplied, and that would have given you 24 over square root of 3. If I rationalize that by multiplying by the square root of 3, I get 24 square root of 3 over 3. And then you can reduce that and you get 8 square root of 3. If you just did the calculator, which is totally fine, so you would do 24 divided by the square root of 3, then it's going to be 13.86. So those are my answers for y. Oops, right here. Again, some teachers are okay with the decimal. If you're more mathy and you're in a more advanced class, then you need to be able to understand how to do the rationals. Okay, so what I'd like you to do is let's go back up to number 3. I'd like you to try it on your own, and when you think you have it, you could press play to check it out. Okay, so you should have started by labeling. I have a short leg is X, long leg is Y, hypotenuse is 6. I highlighted the hypotenuse because that's the one number I'm given. So I had my 2 fractions, short over height and long over height. And then for both of them, I'd have to divide by 6. To get rid of a divide by 6, I would multiply. So this gives me 6 over 2. So X is 3. For this one, same thing, I would multiply by 6. And if you notice, I still have a 6 over 2 that I can reduce. And so I get 3. And then I can't forget this thing, square root of 3. 3 square root of 3. Okay? So that's how you set up 30, 60, 90s. They are tricky, but with practice, you will be okay. Just go through these steps. Okay? What's nice about the next set of problems is that they're easier because you already have equal sides, because it's a isosceles triangle, so you know you're going to have some equal sides. Let's push this space up. Okay, so I'm going to still do the same process. I'm going to label, so I have a leg, and the height. And remember, our ratio is 1, 1, square root of 2, and that's leg, height. Okay? So it's the same process. Because I'm given the leg, I'm going to highlight that. And so I'm given that, so I'm going to put that on the bottom. So I'm going to do the height over the leg. My original hypotenuse is square root of 2. My original leg, is 1. So again, same process, it's original. And then now my new hypotenuse is X, and my new leg is 8. And so now what I'm going to do is just multiply by 8 to get rid of that divide by 8. And so I get X is equal to 8 square root of 2. If I needed to know what this other leg was, well, legs are equal, so this leg over here was also 8. Okay, why don't you try this next one, label it up, and see what you can do to solve it by setting up your ratios and your proportion. Okay, so you should have said this was the height, leg, and leg. I just have to find one of them, because when I find one, I know what the other one is. So I'm given the hypotenuse, so I'm going to stick that on the bottom. So I'm going to do leg over my height. And so, again, original, I'm writing them down each time, so I got them memorized. So leg, height. So my original leg is 1, and my original hypotenuse is square root of 2. And so now my new leg is X, and my new hypotenuse is 18. So to get rid of a divide by 18, I multiply by 18. And so I get X is equal to 18 over square root of 2. But now I need to times by the square root of 2 on top and bottom, because it's that rationalizing the denominator. And so now I get 18 square root of 2 over 2, because 2 times 2 is 4, and the square root of 4 is 2. And so this becomes 9 square root of 2. If you have, if you're in a higher geometry or you're more mathy, this is what you should get. If you are struggling to understand this stuff and you just want to get it right, and your teacher doesn't care if you have radicals, then you could just do 18 divided by square root of 2. And that's 12.73. Both answers are the same, they just are written differently, and one is rounded and the other one is not. So remember, when you go through this process, let's look at these steps. You're going to label your sides, you're going to set up your proportion with your original numbers equals your new numbers, you're going to solve and then repeat if necessary. And again, this is tricky, it takes practice, don't get frustrated, you can learn this.